This is 24 Killers, a flash game where you play as a detective who has to question 24 monsters for information on a potential killer and get to them before they get to you. It's a pretty fun time. This is about as simple as it gets for a mystery game, but it's no secret that I enjoy games that put you in a detective role and tell you to figure out exactly what's going on. Now I want to show you something else. This is also 24 Killers. A Kickstarter game similar to the Flash game in that it's a whodunit, but it's also more fleshed out. The art is a lot more detailed, you can have a bunch of trash cans follow you for some reason, and there's also this mechanic where you can turn into the monsters. The thing is, this is actually only footage from the Kickstarter trailer, because as far as I'm aware, this version of 24 Killers was never actually released. The game has come out. It hardly looks the same, but it has been released, and I wouldn't even say it was the visuals that had the biggest change from prototype to final release. Now, this is the final version of 24 Killers, an indie game where you play as a cursed being who's tasked with rescuing 24 monsters. It's kind of straightforward, but also kind of not. For starters, it's another one of those games. You know, the esoteric moon/love-de-lic likes. I've talked about these games plenty of times before on this channel, so if you're a regular viewer of mine, then you'll know exactly the type of game I'm talking about. But for those of you who aren't, I'll quickly explain. These are games where your goal is to bond with characters in one way or another while under a strict timer. A lot of the charm in these games also comes from how surreal and abstract they can be. As I've just said, I've talked about these types of games before on my channel, and I don't think these games are for everyone, but I personally really enjoy them. And if I ever follow through on any of my own game ideas, you can rest assured that it would take some influence from these types of games. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way about these games, because 24 Killers wears the inspiration proudly on its sleeves. From the game design to the mixed art style of hand-drawn sprites and clay models, this game was created with an obvious love for Moon Remix and love-de-lic in general. Even the name of the development team behind this game, Happy Shabby Games, is a reference to a track from Tulip's soundtrack. For those of you who don't know, Tulip is another game from love-de-lic alumni. I want to talk about this game some more, but I won't draw complete comparisons to those games because 24 Killers still manages to stand on its own 2 feet. And I also think it's more than just a spiritual successor or something like that. In a lot of ways, 24 Killers does follow the love-de-lic philosophy when it comes to stuff like finding meaning in the mundane, but in other ways I also think it challenges the love-de-lic philosophy. For instance, unlike those other protagonists, Home, the character you play as here, is a grouch who isn't helping the monsters in this game out of the kindness of their heart or anything like that. Your motives are to purely lift the curse on your body, and you never lose sight of that fact. This was a really interesting game to play. Like I said, your goal is to basically capture 24 images of these 24 different monsters. But in order to do that, you have to get in their good graces by bringing them something, or solving some puzzles, or doing a minigame, yada yada. The only tool that you really have at your disposal is this camera, but thankfully you can also transform into the monsters that you photograph with it, and they give you special abilities. By the way, yeah, that feature returns from the Kickstarter game. Once you turn into one of the monsters, or mons, you get special abilities like strength, or speed, or cloning. A couple of these you're not really going to be using a lot, but the ones that are useful definitely get their mileage. And by bringing a photograph to this tentacle alien thingy called Moon, you also gain a bit more energy, which lets you stay out a bit longer each day. Stay out too long or take too much damage, and this mole will carry you home at the cost of you losing a bunch of your money, or as this game calls its currency, whispers. You can get a lot done in one day if you know what you're doing though. You can buy some of these beans with whispers to restore some energy, and once you fall into that flow of, okay, I just photographed this monster, now I need to use their ability to head over here and unlock this gate so I can buy this item, which this other monster wants, then I can photograph them and free another one from the vault, then it all becomes a lot easier to deal with. There will be times where you need to sleep to progress the story, and you'll know it because the stars will be floating above your bed. That's actually a really nice touch too, compared to the other games where sometimes you had to sleep and just hope for something to change the next day. According to the patch notes, this is even something that was added in an update, which is a nice little addition that helps the player out just a bit more. And you actually learn about this from this mole driving in his little taxi to tell you about the bed stars and then driving off. This game is full of cute little jokes and things like that make it just a bit more charming. You know, this game always got a chuckle out of me when Home would beat one of the mons at the squatting game, and right before they chucked it away to a different part of the map, Home would tell them to send it. It's the little things like that I think were necessary to give this game a little levity, because this game can be a lot to take in when it comes to the surrealism. It's very out there, and it's one of those that I don't think you're gonna understand until you finish this game at least once. The thing is, it's not really a heavy game though. The main story itself doesn't really deal with any taboo topics or anything, but there is some interesting world building that you can dig into with it. For example, the fact that these monsters all occupy a missile silo, and you can find plenty of other unused military equipment that suggests this island was once a war zone, although it may not have seen any combat. Speaking of the island, I thought it was a pretty decent overworld, partly because of the stuff I just mentioned, and partly because of the comfy atmosphere, but also because it was very easy to memorize. It's not too large a map, and it's also chock full of things that stand out. I don't think the entire map was designed well though. When it came to these buildings that had an object of interest on top of them, I thought you had to be lucky and wish for a gust of wind to come your way so you could gain enough height to land on them. But towards the end of my playthrough, I learned that you could just float from the ground to the roofs. Also, this section where you float between these gusts of wind and dodge attacks from these fish is just not fun. I don't think I've ever made it through here without taking a little damage at least once in each of my playthroughs. But that could also be a skill issue, so you know. Those complaints aside, this game is still a treat to look at. A highlight of the game for me was always when I got to see another mon and take a look at their designs. These guys were all interesting. Basic as it is though, I think my favorite mon was Wormy the Worm. And it didn't really surprise me to learn that a lot of these guys were references to the lead developer Todd Luke's or Shabby's previous works. This one Ghostmon, Windnose, for example, comes from a beautiful puzzle game titled Windnose, and this entire Gabbage thing joke that they have in this game is a callback to another game from Shabby called Gabbage Day. And here's something that felt like it was a nod or callback to something else, but I wasn't able to quite put my finger on. The blood moon. Every night you go to sleep, there's a chance that the sun will turn into a blood moon the next day. Gameplay wise, all it does is boost the amount of whispers that you can collect, and it spawns some sardines that you can collect on the island. But I just couldn't help but feel like I've seen this moon somewhere else before, you know? It's so familiar to me, but I can't place it. Another thing that I have to mention about 24 Killers are the technical difficulties. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them, because I did have a few while playing this game. They were very minor crashes and softlocks to be fair, and Shabby has already acknowledged these issues, but I still feel like they're worth mentioning because I did lose a tiny bit of progress against my will. The first thing I experienced was a normal crash. I'm assuming this was due to a memory leak due to having the game open too long, and because this has already been a noted issue with the game. The softlock I experienced was a bit more peculiar though. It happened when I interacted with this garbage bag. The thing is, you need to recycle it to free this mon and get a photograph from them, but you also need the garbage can item, which I didn't have at this point yet. The game still gave me the option to pick the bag up though, and when I said yes, I was softlocked on this screen and had to exit to the title. Thankfully, this happened at the very start of a day and I had just saved, so I didn't lose that much progress. But still, it's an unwelcome issue. Didn't stop me from beating the game though. Now here's the neat thing about 24 Killers. It took me about 2 sessions of 3 or 4 hours to beat this game the first time. After I finished completing that save, I was taken back to the file select screen to start a new game on a new file. Or I guess I should actually say to start a new universe, because that's your actual goal in this game. Each save file ends with you starting a new universe. The idea being that you beat the game over and over and over and over until you eventually create all the universes. It's not as annoying as it sounds though, because when you finish a universe you get a reward. and these can range from like speeding up the dialogue to giving you a giant claw that you can control with your mouse that lets you skip over huge chunks of the game. Like I said, it took me 2 sessions to finish my first playthrough, but I was able to do the second playthrough in 1. Granted, I already played through the game once and remembered where most everything was, but as you make your way through more and more universes, you'll find that this game gets a lot, and I mean a lot, easier. The only thing in this game that even comes close to feeling like a tedious slog, which seems to be inevitable for these kinds of games, is the grind for 3000 Whispers, which you'll need to purchase some items that are required to beat it. But this game gives you so many ways to earn Whispers that it's hardly an issue at all. Some of the other blessings you can get include little things like giving you a free win on these scratch tickets, or removing the limit on the amount of items that you can consume in one day. Now, I haven't completed all 24 universes yet. I'm only on my 10th playthrough at the time I'm recording this, but you can mark my words that I will complete this game fully. I even did some digging on the Steam forums for this game, and I read that there is a little treat at the end of the journey for anyone who wants to follow through with it, and I want to see what that is. If you want to see what's waiting at the end of the game yourself, then I suggest buying this game because 24 Killers is, in my opinion, worth the asking price. If you've never played a game like this, but it intrigues you, then I think this is a great beginner-friendly starting point. Other games like it can be a bitch to get through, and I'm reluctant to recommend those. But to everyone else who's already a fan of games like this, well then here's more for you to enjoy. Just try to remember that 24 Killers is its own thing.